Let's take a closer look at the leading candidate in Georgia's special election to fill its open House, U.S. House seat vacated by Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Georgia Democrat Shawn Harris got 37% of the vote. That's more than any other candidate. But as I mentioned before the break, candidates need 50% plus one of the vote to win. So he's headed to a runoff election against the Georgia Republican Clayton Fuller, who got close to 35% of the vote. Harris is a retired U.S. Army brigadier general who led combat missions in Afghanistan and served as a senior defense official and defense attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Israel. Harris rose to popularity after raising $4 million throughout his campaign and launching ads to appeal to both Democratic and Republican voters who feel that politicians on both sides of the aisle are out of touch with everyday Georgians. As a cattle farmer, a father of 5 and grandfather of 4, he relates to working-class Georgians who want better economic opportunities and a better life for their families. As such, Harris's campaign has focused on his plans to raise wages and lower costs.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Bobby Jones, and I am honored, tickled to death, and proud to be able to bring you not just a candidate, but a bona fide leader. And he is shaking the political world because he stresses the one thing that's on his shirt: leadership matters. And this is retired General Shawn Harris, who is running for the now vacated seat, special election, Marjorie Taylor Greene's old seat in the state of Georgia. Sir, it's an absolute honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to be on your podcast. I look forward to having a great conversation. And before I even get started, I just want to say thank you for your service, because it's not every day that I get to talk to a fellow veteran. So thank you for your service.
Oh, no, thank you, sir. And thank you for your leadership. And now that we're talking about veteran stuff, let's go ahead and get into that. You served in the Army. You put on a star. And trust me, as a commissioned officer, I understand how hard that is. What led you to even join, and how did you get to that rank? What was it about you that said, I need to do this?
Well, you know, first of all, I must say I was just blessed and lucky. Outstanding people around me, but I did put in the work. I did follow a different path. I actually joined the United States Marine Corps, enlisted, went down to Parris Island. I was 0311 grunt infantry. Came out of that, and then got a chance to go to college at Tuskegee University. Went into the Army ROTC program. When I finished that program, I went to Fort Benning and went infantry again. And as a second lieutenant, did all the same things that everybody else does. But I actually started off in the National Guard. And I think that is significant, that people should know about me, is that when you hear my career, you hear the Army and this and that, and all those things are there. But I also got an opportunity to work out in the real world as a teacher and a principal. And I would tell you, sometimes my middle school teaching days were tougher than anything I ever did in the military. I just say it that way. But I will say this: as I work my way through and working my way up from captain all the way through, I went from being the National Guardsman that was doing it on the weekend to the guy that did it AGR, so every day. And then right before 9/11, that's when I really came onto the AGR program. 9/11 happened, and then just like everybody else, things just speeded up. The next thing you know is deployment after deployment after deployment. Got a chance to command at all levels. I won't make this long, but got a chance to command at all levels. Got a chance to command in Afghanistan as an embedded trainer, where we were the first units to train the Afghanistan National Police. After doing that, coming back home, but doing battalion command again, but then turning right back around, picking up my colonel, and then doing a brigade command, but then leaving from that brigade command and leading a team into Liberia, doing the Ebola time, and doing some additional training over there with the Armed Forces of Liberia. And then coming back out of that is where, as a 06, that's where active duty general, West Point graduate said, Shawn, you have the ability to be a general officer. And then from that, working with other senior leaders, having outstanding, I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, outstanding NCOs. I think if people want to know about my career, it always tracks back to an NCO that was working with me, mentoring me, keeping me on the right path, and holding me accountable. And then ultimately, after I put my star on, took a position there in Kosovo. I was chief of staff in Kosovo, came back out of Kosovo, went to language school in D.C., did some couple things. And then my last assignment was I was the senior defense official in Israel from 2021 to 2023. And as you know, just like we're kind of busy in the Middle East now, we were busy then. So that's how I know everybody that's currently engaged in this war that we're in Iran, because I used to be part of CENTCOM, and those are great friends, great leaders, and they're doing an amazing job, but it's going to be tough. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah, no, General, you hit on a couple of things. Number one, I was in Liberia for a year as a UN peacekeeper, so I understand how arduous that duty was. You've taken hard jobs. It's like
Yeah,
you've taken very hard jobs.
My mentor told me way back at second lieutenant time. He said, and he also there. My mentor was pretty cool. My mentor and his wife mentored me, and also his wife mentored my wife. And they said, hey, you have to make up your mind. What do you want to do with this career? And if you just want to get a nice car, if you just want to buy a nice house, you can take a whole bunch of jobs and you'll make rank, but don't get mad when somebody else moving a lot faster than you. And then he said, but you could take the hard jobs. Now, in those hard jobs, you either going to knock it out the park and be a hero, or you're going to fall dead on your face, and your career might be over. But he said, if you knock it out the park, then people that you don't even know will say, I want that guy on my team. And that's really what happened with me with my career. Is I was a National Guardsman. I did time in Alabama, I did time in Michigan, I did time in the Virgin Islands National Guard, and then ultimately my career ended here in Georgia. But the key piece was active duty people that I work with all over the world, and also NATO forces all over the world said, you know what? I want that Shawn Harris on my team. So I started turning into a by name selection, whatnot. And by doing that, I kept getting the opportunity to move up. But I always stayed humble. I always made sure that when I picked my team, I picked the best, but it was always about giving them that opportunity to move up. And I'm proud that many of the men and women that have served with me on the officer side ended up being colonels, or some are actually about to put on a 1-star, and then others, most of my enlisted guys made it to either first sergeant or command sergeant major. So I'm proud of that. That's the most proud piece of my entire career.
That is a sure sign of effective leadership when your people advance because they've been impacted by good leadership. Now, that leads me to this. You have mentioned about your time in Israel, the Middle East. You know a lot of the CENTCOM guys there now.
Yes.
When you look at what's happening, and as a member of Congress, you will have to have some weight on this, from funding to even possibly declaring a war. When you see this, based on your background, what's going on right now with Iran, Israel, and the United States, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, my initial thoughts is this is 100% a war. Keyword what I just said. This is a war. Let's be clear with that. It's not an operation. This is a war, but this is a war of choice. And when I say it's a war of choice, Iran has been doing a lot of things for a long time. We know it. Period. And with that being said, the question comes into play when the plans were being put together. What did our senior leaders out of the Pentagon, military senior leaders, what was their recommendation? At the end of the day, you know, some of these things are top secret, but at the end of the day, history will tell the story. Did our 4 stars recommend to the president or recommend to the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, whatever he wants to call himself, was the recommendation, let's move forward, or was the recommendation saying, we could do this, but we need to slow down a little bit because it's some key points in the Middle East that we need to think through a little bit more. One, getting the Americans out, just everyday civilians before we start the war. 2, making sure that we have our embassies reinforced. And then 3, when they start shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, how do we make sure that we can still supply oil all around the world? Those things, I think, are some glaring gaps. I'm not putting that on the military. I am putting that 100% on the civilian force or our civilian leaders. And then to answer your question a little bit further, as a congressman going to Congress, I believe Congress right now is weak across the board, because it seems like to me that every time the president thinks he wants to get into a war, it's turned into a pattern. Congress goes home, and then all of a sudden on Saturday, when everybody at home, we get into a war. Okay? We did it in Venezuela. We done did it now. And everybody in Congress try to act like they were surprised. Can you say bad words on your show?
Yes, yes.
I call bullshit. So that's what I call it, is 100% Congress, people like me, we need to say, guys, time out. We can see the same top secret stuff you're seeing. You need to come in here and explain to us, but then you need to turn back around and tell the American people what's going on, because that's why I'm concerned that we could win this war militarily, but we could definitely lose this war on the political end. And as you see, this war is starting to unravel. And right now, the president does not look like he have a clue of what he's supposed to say, when, or anything about it.
No, I agree with you, sir. And what's interesting to me is I know for a fact that those recommendations, those cost benefit analysis was there. People need to remember, sir, the military works for civilian leadership. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Kane, can only make recommendations. At the end of the day, it is the civilians, the president and the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, that make those determinations, right? And right now, like you said, militarily, the light show is great, but long term, what's going to happen? Let me bring it back home to Georgia. First of all, you've done more than your fair share serving this country. Why have you picked up the flag yet again to continue to serve, especially in an area where I'm old enough, growing up in this state? Hey, someone like you shouldn't have a chance in a district like that.
Yeah, the cool thing about me is I'm humble. I'm when I look through a lens, I don't see myself. I see everybody else. What can I do to help everybody else? In the scenario, the only reason I'm running for Congress is because some Republicans, I'm not a Republican, but some Republicans looked at my background when I came back home from Israel and was here on the farm. They also were veterans, and they said, you know what, Shawn? Hey, man, you got the background, you got the it factor, whatever that it is. We think that you should run against Marjorie Taylor Greene. And when they were asking me this, I said, guys, I never had to say it in my entire career, was I Democrat, Independent, or Republican, but I think y'all guys think that I'm a Republican. They said, yeah, we know you're a Republican. You made it feel a general. And I said, no, guys, I'm a Democrat, thinking that they would leave me alone. Took them less than 2 minutes. They said, you know what? You still got the it factor. We want to support you. Those guys are still supporting me today. The reality of it is, I am a moderate Democrat. That's what I am. I'm not all the way over here. I'm not all the way over there. I'm somebody that's going to go to D.C., call balls and strikes. That's what I'm going to do. And my focus is the people right here in Northwest Georgia. I don't care if you're Democrat, Independent, or Republican. Just like when you and I were overseas in the fight, we were fighting for Americans. We never got to no blue T-shirt or a red T-shirt. We were fighting for Americans. So when I look through my lens, and some people may say it's crazy, but when I look through my lens is that same lens that says I am fighting for Americans. Just so happen the Americans that I'm going to be fighting for is just right here in this little bitty part of Georgia called Northwest Georgia, CD 14. And that's what I'm going to try to do, is bring home results, because 5 years of Marjorie Taylor Greene actually did absolutely nothing for them. And Marjorie Taylor Greene now is telling us that all the things that she thought she believed with Donald Trump and others was not true. That's not me saying it. That's Marjorie saying
That's
it.
her. So let's talk about Congressional District 14 for a second. What is happening there? What are you seeing? How are the people feeling about the current direction of their neighborhoods and the nation?
Yeah, the people across the board, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans across the board are sick and tired. They have been promised and promised and promised with no results. They have been told all kind of crazy social things, but it brought no change. It brought no jobs. So the reality of it is, right now, the number one thing that affects us here, like it affects everybody else, but specifically in a rural area like I live in, is the economy. Everything is very expensive. As you know, or you may not know, the number one economy or number one job in our district is agriculture. So as a cattle farmer, I can feel it and see it, because right now, with the war that's going on, gas prices, diesel prices are out the roof, fertilizer prices are out the roof, and on a daily basis here in the United States, we got 53 farmers per day filing for bankruptcy. And
Wow.
and so with that pressure being there, and then if our farmers collapse, our whole system that we have will collapse. Now, with that being said, the district is very diverse, because it goes all the way from West Cobb, all the way back through Paulding, through Pope, where I'm at, and then through Florida, and then all the way back up to Tennessee. But with that being said, it's a whole lot of little bitty towns that are depending, got one grocery store, usually Walmart, a Dollar General, two or three Dollar Generals. I think it's a Dollar General every 5 miles. Okay. But on top of that, one hospital or clinic.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the other issue that's affecting everybody is, when you come to our healthcare system, our insurance is crazy right now with the ACA out of control. But the other piece is, we have the hospitals or have the facilities, but we don't actually have the doctors, nurses, or specialists. So if you get hurt, get real sick, you go somewhere, they're going to try to stabilize you, but you either going to Atlanta, Georgia, or you're going to Chattanooga, Tennessee to get real health care. So what people is telling me, Shawn, help us, because we're getting hit on economics. We're getting hit because we're in a healthcare desert, and then ultimately we're getting hit because everything that's happening in DC, it doesn't seem like anybody's paying attention to the small rural areas, and we just turn it into a pond. And I'm not sure if you know it, it's roughly 40,000 veterans here in our district. And to be honest with you, we have a little clinic that's there in Rome, Georgia. They work extremely hard. But only thing you can really do is go there. They give you something, but then you ultimately got to drive somewhere else to get your glasses. You got to drive somewhere else to get your ears checked. You got to drive somewhere else to get your heart checked. So for all practical purposes, my fight or my issue for our veterans is, I got to bring in more support for our veterans, because many of them are getting older. They say to me, Shawn, I'm scared to drive to downtown Atlanta. Not because of the people. They're scared to drive in 6 lanes of traffic.
Right.
We got 2-lane roads. So if you only go to Atlanta every 6 months, at some point you're going to say, no, I'll just skip that apartment. And that's just not right.
No, I agree. As someone who lives in Metro Atlanta, I'm scared to drive into 6 lanes of traffic. But you hit on something. A lot of our vets nationwide live in majority rural areas. They do what you do. They go and do the hard work, agriculture. In the state of Georgia, that is the number one economic thing in the state of Georgia. People, we talked about this before we went on camera. Georgia's really, Atlanta and then the rest of the state. And I think people get that confused. And when you look at the VA and how they're trying to gut it, I mean, going out of their way to cut those services, in particular to those who live in those rural areas where we need y'all. Like you said, cattle farming, you don't have to work. You're a retired general. You want to do this, right? And so making sure that the mechanisms are in place for that to happen. Let me get you out of here on this, sir. you did it for so long. You served in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
You come back and you're still you're still being selfless in your acts. When you got to the runoff, which we're at now, and the entire nation, the entire world noticed, what were your thoughts and what are you thinking moving forward to this special election?
Yeah, it's something I always tell my team, and when I say my team, it's the inner team, and then it's everybody that's out there volunteering. I say the same thing to everybody: win the day, win every day. Get used to winning the day, because if you can win the day, you can win the week, you can win the month, you can win the year, and you can win the election. So that when you actually get to that win, act like you've been there. And that's what actually happened the other night. We knew we had put the work in. We knew we was running against 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 Republicans. Okay. We knew we was running against 2 other Democrats. Most people don't talk about that. But we went into that particular race saying 2 things. One, if we can get lucky and get 50 plus 1%, that's going to be a miracle. But if we can make sure that when it's all said and done, it says that the Democrat got the most votes, that is a big win for us. And we're going to take that momentum into this next phase that we're calling the runoff. And that night when we was talking to the news, when we was talking to international news, because France has been here, Great Britain has been here, Germany's been here, you name it, everybody's been here. We wanted to make sure that people knew that we were proud and happy that we won, but that wasn't the game. The game is not over. You got to come right back the next day, start knocking on doors, making phone calls, doing all the things that we know we have to do to win. And something I told the team, and I'll tell you, and I tell all your followers, when you see leadership matters, the reason why we have that on my shirt, that's something I used to say in the military all the time. But I would say to my officers, leadership matters because don't ask your troops to do nothing that you won't do. So if in this business I'm in now, if I'm not willing to go knock on somebody's doors, if I'm not willing to make phone calls, if I'm not willing to go on Newsmax, did you catch what I just said?
Yes, sir.
If I'm not willing to go into the lion's den and tell our story, then why should you be voting for me? Because if I'm saying I want everybody to vote for me across the board, then I should be on CNN, I should be on CBS, I should be on Fox News, I should be on Newsmax. Anybody who calls and say, we want this Shawn Harris to come, if I am a real leader and not hiding behind stuff like my opponent, then I go in and everywhere. And yesterday, they played it live. I was on Newsmax, and yes, some people were trying to frame me to say I was somebody else. Guess what? When you know yourself, my name is Shawn Harris. I'm a retired general, and I don't have to be anybody else. I'm proud just being me. That's what the people here in Northwest Georgia know about me. They say, you know what? Shawn Harris is a real person. Shawn Harris is somebody I can see at Walmart or Tractor Supply any day out the week, and he will stop and talk to me. And guess what? If you don't ask him, he'll never tell you that he's a retired general, because my mama taught me to be humble. I'm no better than anybody else. I'm just trying to make it like everybody else.
Well, General, I call you General because I think you've earned it. So that's just me. But, you've come a long way from Southwest Georgia there, sir. A long way. Sir. And now the world is noticing. And like I said, the people up there in Northwest Georgia, I get to drive through there pretty much monthly. There are people that hurting. They deserve better. They deserve better. And you are the person that can help deliver it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to this American hero, someone who is all of a sudden the hard work is paying off, and now people want to notice, but he's always been working. Yeah. He's always been working. And it's a pleasure and honor, sir. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And I just want to say to all of your followers, because I know you have a lot of veterans that follow you. Hey, guys, across the board, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service. And then to all our spouses, thank you for holding down household six. Because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for our spouses, the house bill would have never got paid, to be honest with you. You can't pay that from all overseas in the middle of a war. You just got to let somebody else take care of it. So again, thank you for that, giving me the opportunity to speak to everybody today.
Thank you, sir.
All right.